Over the last few years, the Model Y has defined the way we think of Tesla in Europe, establishing a template for a business-minded electric mid-sized hatch that the mainstream brands are only just getting to grips with. Just as they are, Musk's men have introduced this considerably upgraded Project Juniper design, with sleeker looks and a classier interior.
Tesla's Model Y has been rejuvenated. Here, we're going to take a closer look. The Model 3 may have been the car that brought Tesla mainstream in world markets, but its hatch stablemate, Model Y, is a car that's sold in greater numbers since its original launch in 2020. It's been produced in Europe for Europeans at the Tesla Berlin-Brandenburg Gigafactory since 2022, and it was the world's best-selling car in 2023. Even well into its initial production run, it still managed to be the UK's 5th bestseller in 2024. But competition is intensifying in the mid-sized EV segment, and going forward, the Model Y will sit in a range also populated by the smaller Tesla Model 2. Time then for a much-needed update package known during development as Project Juniper. Many of the changes are similar to those made as part of the Project Highland update, which was visited on the Model 3 in early 2024. But this updated Y gets much more distinct exterior styling. Now you can find out more about this kind of model by downloading the Car and Driving app. And if your interest is specifically in this Model Y, then stay with us for the industry's most comprehensive review, the Car and Driving Road Test. One of the things on Tesla's to-do list with this Model Y's Project Juniper update was to improve ride quality. That's something that, like others, we criticised about it back in our original test in 2022. Well, this enhanced design is still pretty firm, but it's no longer quite as unsettled over porous surfaces as the original car was. That earlier Y model's refinement also needed looking at. The original version was more afflicted with wind noise and tyre roar than it ought to have been. And again, some useful improvements have been made, primarily with new sound dampening materials and also with the introduction of acoustic glazing. Now, Tesla reckons that's reduced road noise by 22%, impact noise by 20%, and wind noise by 20% too. Subjectively though, the improvement doesn't feel quite as great as that. Journeying quietness still isn't anything like class leading, but it now does at least match the segment standard. Not all of the changes have worked. We weren't that enamoured with the original car's rather lifeless steering, and to try to improve that, Tesla has slowed the rack down from 2 to 2.4 turns lock to lock, but it still remains somewhat remote in feel and rather needlessly oversensitive. Whichever of the three provided helm settings you choose, you've got light, standard or heavy. That's disappointing because, as before, there is a fundamentally well-balanced chassis in play here, with really well-balanced weight distribution, a lack of body roll, and excellent cornering traction too. You can't help thinking that a few days with a really good European brand R&D team at the Nürburgring Nordschleife racetrack might transform this package into one of the more enjoyable steers in the entire segment. As it is, the Model Y remains a little way off that goal. The drivetrains are much as before, but the EV range figures that they generate are usefully enhanced, and that's primarily thanks to the improved aerodynamics. The base standard range version, which uses a 279 bhp rear-mounted motor, has a 63 kWh LFP battery. That takes you 311 miles between charges. Most will want the mid-level long-range rear-wheel drive variant though, which gets a gutsier 308 bhp rear axle motor to compensate for the larger 83 kWh NMC battery. That's capable of taking the car up to 387 miles between charges. The same larger battery also figures, of course, in the two dual motor derivatives. The long range all-wheel drive version we're trying here, that has a combined output of 375 bhp, and the top performance variant, the output of that hadn't yet been announced at the time of this review though. Obviously, the extra weight of the dual motor format blunts range rather. For this long-range all-wheel drive model, it's quoted at 364 miles. As before, all variants are quite rapid. Both the single-motor versions make 60 miles an hour in about 5.5 seconds, a stat that this all-wheel drive model improves to 4.1 seconds on the way to the 125 miles an hour top speed all Model Ys share. These stats assume, of course, you select the faster of the two provided acceleration modes, Sport, the other one is Chill. Belatedly, Tesla has introduced two brake regeneration settings for our market. They're branded here as deceleration modes. As I said, there are only two, reduced and standard, and they have to be accessed via rather fiddly screen menus. They do work well via a brake-by-wire system, and they give good pedal feel. The other drive change you'll immediately notice here is that there's now no gear selection stalk. That functionality has been moved into the swipe option on the right-hand side of the central screen here that you get with other Teslas. Initially, you might find this a little bit awkward to use. I certainly did, but you'll get used to it, and the system automatically selects backwards and forwards motion when you're maneuvering around at low speeds. That's jolly useful. As is the obstacle-aware acceleration feature, which prevents unintended parking scuffs. Tesla has also added a new front camera. This is located in the restyled nose section, and this offers drivers an expanded view of their surroundings, and it is equipped with a fluid washer and integrated heating too, to prevent fogging and to defrost it in cold weather. Otherwise, things are much as before. No fake engine noise options and a pretty poor 12.1 meter turning circle. Towing is possible and quite capable, with up to 1,600 kilos of hitched up weight being possible. This is a much more distinctive looking Model Y with an exterior redesign apparently conceived to maximize efficiency, using every kilowatt hour more effectively. To that end, the drag coefficient is more slippery, improved from 0.23 CD to 0.22 CD, keeping this Tesla as one of the segment's sleekest cars. At first glance, there don't seem to be many changes here at the side, although actually body length has increased quite substantially by 39 millimeters to 4,790 mils. That's 70 millimeters longer than a Model 3. That's a needed increment, given this Model Y has to be large enough to accommodate a third seating row in some markets. Now, for partly the same reason, this Y is quite a lot taller than a 3.2, a considerable 182 millimeters taller in fact. The fish-like silhouette might not be particularly striking, but there is the draw of a standard two-piece panoramic roof and neat details like flush-fitting door handles. What look like side repeaters behind the front wheel arches are actually cameras for the drive assist tech. This is an unfortunate choice of placement because they're right in the path of dirt being flung up by the wheels, and that means in the winter you will often get messages saying that the side cameras are blocked. These wheels, by the way, sit in black plastic arches, and they're 19 inches as standard. At the front, the first thing you'll notice is the new look nose, which references that on the company's avant-garde Cybertruck, hence the angular lines and the ultra-thin LED light setup. The front bumper's been redesigned too, with more prominent side intakes and restyled surfacing. The rear is also different, now embellished with smoked tail lamps and a 1.6 meter full width light bar. The tailgate, the new thermoplastic spoiler and the extended diffuser have all been redesigned to enhance aerodynamics, stability and impact protection. And if you pay Tesla the substantial amount extra it wants for the optional tow hitch, you'll now find that features a quick release cover for ease of use. As before, the leading edge of the passenger side tail lamp conceals the charging flap. There's still no option to add a rear wiper back here. Tesla's designers say that you don't need one. They clearly don't have autumn leaf shedding trees in Silicon Valley. Okay, time to take a look inside. Now, a neat touch here is that as long as you're logged into the car with Tesla's smartphone app, it'll unlock itself and turn itself on when it detects your phone. Or you can unlock the car more manually by holding this provided RFID smart card up to the B pillar, although it is a bit fiddly to find the right spot. Either way, the door opens with a press on the larger part of this black release handle. Inside, those familiar with the original car will notice the new steering wheel, now featuring customizable switches for quick access to frequently used vehicle functions. Just one redesigned stalk now protrudes from it, gear selection duties having been moved to the near end of the huge 15.4-inch central screen, also improved, although it looks very much the same. The company's alternative segment contender, that's the Model 3, that doesn't even have an indicator stalk, but this was retained for the Y because customers told Tesla, as we did, that they didn't like the wheel-mounted indicator buttons on the 3. What else? Well, these front seats have been redesigned and can now be ventilated, and as before, there's a choice of black or white interior finishes. This central console here is also new, covered in genuine aluminium and featuring sliding covers with precise smooth movement, which ease back to reveal both a cup holder and extra storage. And there's more too. The USB-C ports offer faster 65-watt charging. The Wi-Fi is now a massive 300% faster, and the vast glass roof, although it looks the same as before, is apparently all new too, reflecting more solar energy, and that better helps to keep the cabin cool when the sun shines. Plus blind spot indicators, they are now integrated into the front door tweeter area. Otherwise, the minimalist cabin is much as before. The physical switching has been kept to an absolute minimum, something that Tesla fans seem to like, but which we and others think is a bit of a potential safety hazard. As usual with the brand, don't even bother looking for a starter button, for a handbrake switch, or for physical ventilation controls. Even the vents actually themselves are pretty hard to see. Minimality is all well and good, but a potential premium segment European buyer of this car is ideally going to want it to be accompanied by the kind of cabin quality and richness of interior design that the posh German brands, along with Volvo and Lexus, do provide in the segment. Tesla has made a few strides forward in this regard. The microfiber dash top finish looks nice, for example, but we still can't pretend that to be what you really get here. To be frank, the stripped out feel doesn't really help in that regard, even though build quality from the Berlin factory seems really strong. As for Tesla's curious insistence on displaying the usual driving instruments on the nearer third of the central touchscreen, well, in our view, that'd be fine if this layout was supplemented by a head-up display, but you can't have that. So you're constantly flicking your eyes away from the road and looking instead at this monitor. Adapting to this isn't too difficult, and also the way that the driving graphics show surrounding traffic, that really is very clever. But the whole setup isn't optimum in the way that such a clean sheet design really could have been. Still, compensatory technology is absolutely dripping from every menu, and pinch and swipe action is accessible through this enormously capable central monitor, which, as before, unfortunately has to take care of all the wiper functions. That's yet another thing that Tesla converts will just have to get used to. As before, we disapprove of the dog function, which continues ventilation fan operation after you leave the car down to 20% of battery level. And we also wish Tesla would get on and offer Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. But we like the cabin's integrated Sentry mode, which uses the car's camera system to record outside theft threats. Cabin storage space remains generous. We mentioned the deep central console storage. The door bins are big, and there's a deep box under the central armrest. Plus, as you can see, there are two prominent phone charging mat spaces. Rear three-quarter vision remains poor, so you're going to need the surround view camera system. Right, time to take a look in the back. Now, a relatively long wheelbase by class standards should help here, as should the fact that the Model Y is longer than quite a few of its more obvious segment rivals. A Ford Capri, for example, is 156 millimeters shorter. Big improvement here in the rear is the addition of this added 8.4-inch touchscreen for climate functions and games, which can connect you through to YouTube and Netflix. But there are also a few improvements which are less obvious, like the way that the second row seats here now have a powered reclining function, and they offer enhanced comfort too and convenience with easier to access buckles, longer cushions and deeper bolsters. There is rear seat heating too. As before, legroom is generous, and taking a middle-seated adult is possible not only because of the completely flat floor here, but also because of the space provided for a central-seated passenger to slide his or her shoes forward beneath this jutting console with its twin vents. The vast glass roof and the rear quarter-light windows give a light and airy feel, and you're well provided for back here with big door bins, narrow seat back pockets, overhead reading lights and pop-out coat hooks. Finally, let's take a look at the boot, on the way to which we'll mention that the optional third seating row that Tesla briefly offered here on the pre-facelift version of this car hadn't yet been made available on this Project Juniper model at the time of our test. As you can probably tell from a glance at the rear hindquarters of this car, the space that this feature provides is somewhat cramped. We have tried it, and it is. Anyway, on to luggage space. Now, the powered tailgate here rises to reveal the same 890 litre cargo area as was offered before, which sounds a lot, but only because Tesla quotes capacities measured up to the roof rather than to the window line as other brands do. There is now a parcel shelf, which wasn't provided on earlier Model Ys, and it's a good square usable space, which is usefully improved by this versatile floor with its twin luggage boards and a deep well underneath them. Recesses are provided either side, and there's a useful light on the inner side of the tailgate for nighttime loading. A flexible 40-20-40 split is provided for the rear seat back, so longer items like skis can be slid in without disturbing a couple of rear-seated occupants. If you need more room, flattening the bench backrest is aided by little power buttons on the left for seat retraction. You don't get a completely flat load area as a result, but the 2,138 litre capacity freed up as a result should be ample for most owners. We'll finish with a look at the frunk, the fruit, or whatever you want to call it, up front here in the nose. It can't quite swallow suitcases like the one in the Model S can, but with a single motor variant, its 117 litre capacity is probably good for a couple of small squashy bags. With this dual motor model, that figure falls to 88 litres. With this updated model, this area has been improved by the addition of a drain plug, so if you're carrying dirty items, you can simply hose down the area after you've taken them out. At the time of this test in summer 2025, Tesla was wanting just over £46,000 for this updated Model Y in single motor rear-driven form, or from around £50,000 for a Model Y in long-range rear-driven guise. As we filmed, a Model Y in this long-range all-wheel drive form needed just over £53,000. If you want to go faster in a Model Y, you'll need to talk to the brand about the top performance version of this updated car. For reference, you can get pretty much all the same engineering in the brand's Model 3 saloon at a like-for-like saving of £4,000 to £5,000. And this is a fact that strangely doesn't appear to put too many Model Y customers off. As for rivals to this car, well, how long have you got? The mid-sized EV segment's absolutely stacked with alternatives, but Tesla wants that Model 3 design to compete more directly with most of them. With that in mind, and for brevity, we'll limit the alternatives mentioned here to those championing the more swept-back coupe SUV look that, to some extent, the Model Y helped to launch in this segment. which means cars like Ford's Capri, which uses the same VW Group engineering as 4 other like-minded segment contenders, namely Skoda's Enyaq Coupe, Volkswagen's ID.5, the Cupra Tevascan and Audi's Q4 Sportback e-tron. You might also want to look at Kia's EV4 and EV6. There's Polestar's 2 and 4 models, maybe also Volvo's EC40, Peugeot's E408 and the Toyota BZ4X Touring. Plus there are emerging brand contenders too, like the BYD C-Line 7 and the Xiaopeng G6, or if you can spend a bit more, BMW's i4 Grand Coupe, the Mercedes CLA 250 Plus and the Lexus RZ. Despite all those many options, you might feel that there's simply nothing quite like a Model Y, or at least there's nothing quite like the deal that Tesla's prepared to offer you on one. If that is the case, then of course you're going to need to know just how generous this US brand has been with the standard specifications. So we're going to take a look at that right now. Pretty much everything that you want comes without extra spend. That includes 19-inch crossflow wheels and also a tinted panoramic glass roof with ultraviolet and infrared protection. There is now also low E glass, which reflects 26% more solar energy than the previous design's glazing, and that helps to maintain an ideal temperature when combined with this updated Juniper model's quieter and more efficient air conditioning system. That cools a cabin fitted out with vegan leather upholstery in black or white, power-operated, ventilated and heated front seats, a 360-degree camera system and a 9-speaker audio system that's upgraded to a 15-speaker premium setup on the dual-motor versions. For backseat folk, there are heated seats and a new 8-inch rear touchscreen. There's been a big step forward in media connectivity with redesigned hardware delivering 50% faster download speeds. Wi-Fi connectivity, that's also been greatly improved with download speeds up to 300% faster, and that's for smoother video streaming and also software updates. And there's a range extension of up to 200%, and that ensures sustained connectivity in areas like garages and driveways. There's a significant boost in cellular performance, plus phone key performance and reliability. They've seen a huge improvement too. That's thanks to the addition of ultra-wideband and other enhancements. These also enable automatic tailgate opening when they're paired up with the Tesla app. As before, the brand's basic autopilot package comes included, which incorporates auto steer and traffic-aware cruise control. If you do have more to spend, you can build on that with an enhanced autopilot package. And now this enables driver-activated command features, which will allow this car to automatically overtake, to perform lane changes, to enter or leave the highway slip roads, and to park itself. A further optional full self-driving capability pack that can add this capability to your Model Y when that becomes UK legal. Otherwise, the only other Model Y options are bigger 20-inch wheels, a tow hitch, a roof rack, the mobile connector that you might need if you're charging away on extended trips. For home use, there is also a wall connector if you need it. Remember too that unless you choose the only standard body colour, and that's stealth grey, you're going to have to pay more for paintwork, and quite a lot more actually. This test car's quicksilver finish costs £2,600 extra, and even the less expensive shades are £1,300 more. Safety continues to be a brand strong point. Tesla says the Model Y is designed to be the safest vehicle in its class. The low centre of gravity, the rigid body structure and the large crumple zones provide strong protection. And like all new Teslas, this one comes as standard with automatic emergency braking, also forward collision warning and lane departure avoidance. Blind spot indicators, they're now integrated into the front door tweeter area. And there are also some helpful extra touches. There are chimes to tell you when the speed limit's changed or when the traffic light that you're queuing for has gone green, and an obstacle-aware acceleration feature. This prevents unintentional collisions at parking speeds. We gave you the EV range figures in our driving section, all of which have been usefully improved. thanks to this Project Juniper model's sleeker aerodynamics. In the case of the headlining volume long-range all-wheel drive variant, the 387-mile claimed figure means you're supposed to get 14 miles more between charges than the pre-facelift design could manage. That figure, by the way, is difficult to better in this class. We've been getting about 3.8 miles per kilowatt hour overall during this test, but you can do a lot better than that in purely suburban or urban motoring. Teslas are no longer the fastest charging EVs on the market, but this Model Y's 250 kilowatt DC charging speed still beats most rivals. As before, the biggest draw for ownership is Tesla's supercharger network, with 1,800 superchargers available at the time of this test across the UK and Ireland. Typically, Tesla superchargers are about 30 to 40% cheaper than other chargers from competitors, around 50p per kilowatt hour, and you can roughly expect to charge a Tesla for about 20 to 30 pounds to get 300 miles of range. Obviously, that is a lot cheaper than petrol and quite a bit cheaper than diesel too. This network isn't quite as big a draw as it used to be, now that cars from other brands can use some of those supercharger stations, but others remain Tesla exclusive. Prior to arrival, the car plots a route via its navigation system. It can calculate where stops are needed, and optimizing battery temperature on the way to the charger too, so that charging speeds will be as quick as possible. And the navigation system here is satisfyingly up to date about which chargers are busy, out of service or available. So you visit, you rarely wait to connect up, you replenish the battery, you leave, and you get direct debit charged each month. There's no tapping of contactless cards or creating additional app accounts. You just turn up and plug in. Would that all charging networks were that straightforward to use. A 10 to 80% DC charge takes about 30 minutes, but a full charge from empty might take several hours, depending on the station's charging speed. As for AC charging at home, Tesla reckons that from empty to full, an 11 kilowatt wall box would replenish both Model Y batteries in about 7.5 hours, but the 7.4 kilowatt wall box that most owners will probably have needs 11 hours 45 minutes. What else? Well, the annual service fee covers an annual inspection, replacement parts like brake pads and windscreen wipers, 24-hour roadside assistance too, system monitoring, remote diagnostics, software updates and new features sent through the touchscreen. Insurance groupings, they're usually expensive for Teslas, and they do remain so here, although they are lower than they were with the pre-facelift design. The base rear-wheel drive standard range model is at Group 37, with the dual motor variant at Group 42. As usual with an EV, there's a low benefit in kind taxation rating of 3% for the 25 to 26 period, and relatively cheap VED tax, £10 for year one, rising to £620 for the following 5 years, including the VED surcharge for cars costing more than £40,000 when they're new. Depreciation, that is competitive, reckon on around 50% after 3 years and 36,000 miles. These days, of course, the Model Y has a far tougher task than it did at its original launch back in 2021. But this welcome package of Project Juniper updates has kept it fresh amongst much more recently launched rivals. There's a more premium look inside and out, and if you haven't tried this car for some time, you'll be impressed at the more recent improvements in driving range and refinement. Not everyone likes the stripped out cabin vibe though, so try before you buy. As ever though with this brand, the biggest ownership draw remains the brand's accessible supercharger network, something that no other marque can match. In short, although the competition is getting closer, you might still feel that there's nothing quite like this Tesla.